Are just a couple of months from the first high school football games of the season, and we've got the MaxPreps Top 25 here on HQ. I'm Chris Hassel. That's Amanda Guerra.
Oh, hello there, sir. Yes, from big transfers to schools looking to make history, we are gearing up for the return of Friday Night Lights and taking a look at the top schools in the country there. MaxPreps has revealed its top 25 high school teams entering 2020. Taking a look at the list there, 25 through 16, I will say there are 5 schools California. Also noting number 16, South Lake Carroll. They have the top-rated quarterback in the class of 2022, Quinn Ewers. Then taking a look at 15 through 16, there are so many good notes within these schools. Number 15, Corona Centennial. The number 1 player in the country from the class of 2021, Corey Foreman. Number 14, Northwestern. They have a lot of questions heading into this season. Number 11, Katy, Texas. They've won at least 10 games every season since Gary Joseph became the head coach there. We're going to dive into some of these, but specifically talk about the top 5. All right, so let's bring in the guys who are going to take us 1 through 5 there. We got Zach Poff and Steve Montaya. We're going to reveal the top 5 here. But, Steve, I want to start with you first as we're kind of heading in to this questionable time of year. It's been a weird year so far. Give us the landscape of high school football right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see a little bit of light that high school football will be back in the fall. Teams are slowly starting to get on the field, obviously with some modifications. But like I said, we're starting to see hope. Obviously, things could happen, and we've heard everything from high school football getting bumped back a few weeks to a few months to even move to winter or spring potentially. But as of right now, we're pushing forward as if the high school football season is starting like normal, and we're excited to release our preseason top 25 and break down the top 5 teams heading into 2020.
All right, let's do it. Let's start going 5 through 1. Zach, you're going to be up first with number 5. We're looking at a school with a quarterback that has the chance to win National Player of the Year, North Shore High School in Houston. Tell us about it.
Yeah, you're talking about Demetrius Davis, 2021 Auburn commit. Now, all this kid has done over the last 2 years, he has nearly 8,000 yards of total offense, 113 total touchdowns, and he's done something that the last quarterback to do in Texas was Kyler Murray, and that's win back-to-back state titles in the largest classification. He's going to go for a three-peat this year. And I tell you what, back in the day when I used to do shows with Tommy Tran, we started this, and they were the original sauce team. They still got that sauce coming into this year with Demetrius Davis under center. And then you got Chodrick Banks coming back from an injury last season. He's a 2021 Texas A&M commit, one of the best wide receivers in high school football. And they're one of 5 teams from Texas in the top 25 preseason rankings.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you throwing that in there. And I know you made Tommy Tran's day. Steve, let's go number 4, St. Francis Academy. This is a team that's 34-1 over the past 3 seasons. Tell us more about the school and the program.
Yeah, St. Francis Academy, an emerging powerhouse out of Baltimore. They've finished in the top 10 each of the last 3 seasons. And they're just loaded up and down. They have 20-plus kids who've already received a Power 5 offer. Last year they went 11-1, and they only allowed 6 points per game. But what's scary about them is their defense is probably better heading into this season. Aaron Willis, the linebacker, he's a 2021 Tennessee commit. He'll lead the way, but, I mean, you could go up and down their defense, and they just are stacked. Clinton Burton, he's a cornerback there. He's a first-team selection, a MaxPreps All-American. So when you're looking at St. Francis Academy, you're just looking at a team that is just a powerhouse on the defensive side of the ball. And they have the talent, and it wouldn't surprise many, including Zach, that they may finish number 1 overall in 2020.
All right, you mentioned the word powerhouse here, and this is certainly a program that is at number 3. Zach, why is St. John Bosco at number 3?
Yeah, I mean, last year they finished the year at number 1. They played one of the toughest schedules, and they beat one of the best teams of the last decade, modern day, to win the CIF Southern Section Division I championship. They went on to beat De La Salle the following week. But, man, it's going to be impossible to replace DJ Uiagalelei at quarterback. But they got 2 young guys that have a chance, Caton Hauser and then Pierce Clarkson is a name to remember. He's class of 2023. His dad's a legend, Steve Clarkson, one of the best quarterback coaches in Southern California and in the country. But I look at Bosco's defense, and I think that's going to be important important for them to start the year with a guy like Ma, 2021 USC committed linebacker, and then also Nate Burrell coming off the edge. He was a first-team selection on the MaxPreps sophomore team, and also a guy to keep tabs on is Tavion Beasley. He's the next grade DB at St. John Bosco. The thing I love about Bosco also is their head coach, Jason Negro, easily one of the best coaches in high school football. He was named our Decade Coach of the Year from 2010 to 2019. He's special, and he's a great coach for all those guys at St. John Bosco.
Steve, dive into St. John Bosco for us as well. Give us an area where you feel very confident in this program, and then another area where maybe you have some concern.
Well, it's hard to have concerns with St. John Bosco. I mean, because of how much talent they have. And what's really interesting about St. John Bosco and the next team we're going to talk about is the league they play in, which is the Trinity League. I would say it's the toughest league in the country, top to bottom. I mean, you're playing against Division I talent every single week in that league. And Zach, I know there's a different league out there that you could argue, or anybody around the country could argue, is just as tough as the Trinity League. But in my opinion, if you want to watch the next tier of college football players, you just have to go to a Trinity League game. We also have number 23 Servite in there in our top 25 rankings. So you have 3 teams from one league in our top 25 rankings. That's how stacked that Southern California League is.
All right, let's talk about number 2, Steve. Very close to home. Mater Dei has finished number 1 or number 2 in the country each of the past 3 seasons. I know they have a new quarterback in Miller Moss. Tell us about this powerhouse of a program at number 2.
Yeah, and it was a good segue into this because Mater Dei is in the Trinity League with St. John Bosco. So these teams typically play each other twice a year. So they'll play a league game, and usually they end up playing each other in the Sexton Championship to see who goes to the state title game. And last year they split it. They went 1-1. And I think the reason, we pushed Mater Dei up to number 2 this year is the recent transfer of the USC commit that just came in the last few weeks, Miller Moss. And that was kind of the question mark of who would take over under center. But they got their answer. Alamany QB comes in, threw for over 3,000 yards last year. And Mater Dei, one thing about them is they always have a good quarterback. Matt Liner, Matt Barkley, Bryce Young, JT Daniels. Those are just a few names on their list. And then they got other transfers coming in too. Raleek Brown, a kid out of Stockton in Northern California, a running back, is just a pure stud. So you have him, and then just all the talent there. I know we're going to get some heat on St. John Bosco being behind Mater Dei, but the great thing about those 2 schools is they get to play each other on the field and decide who is the best between those 2. But watch out, Servite's in there too in our rankings. They could be a sleeper this year.
Steve, really quickly, looking at that Trinity League, who do you think does, in fact, at the end of the season come out on top there?
Well, I think Mater Dei comes out on top, and I think that St. John Bosco and Mater Dei will play again in the section finals, and I'm going to say that this year Mater Dei goes 2-0 and ends up playing in the state title.
Okay, there you go. We got it right now. He might change his mind later, but we got it. Zach, you get to take us to number 1 IMG Academy here in Florida. You said there was one name as to why you had them at number 1, so give us that name and that reason.
Yeah, Michigan fans are going to be happy. J.J. McCarthy. He's a 5-star quarterback, one of the best gunslingers in high school football. He transferred over from Nazareth Academy out in Illinois, and over the last 2 years, he led them to a 26-2 record, threw for over 6,000 yards, had over 50 total touchdowns, and he led them to a state title during his sophomore season. And I think he's going to come in and shine for IMG Academy. And, games are usually won or lost on the offensive line, and IMG Academy has the number 1 offensive line in high school football. That was one of the main reasons also why they start the year at number 1. J.C. Latham just committed to Alabama last Friday. He's the number 1 offensive lineman in the class of 2021. And then they also got Tyler Booker, the number 1 offensive tackle from the class of 2022. And then you flip things over to the defensive line. They got one of the best defensive lines in high school football, also led by Tumisi Adelaide. He's a 2021 Ohio State commit. And they also got the #1 defensive tackle, Walter Nolan, on the D-line. So I love them in the trenches, and I like their quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. They also got a couple of big-time running backs led by soon-to-be junior Katron Allen. He led the team in rushing as a sophomore last season. And on defense, man, they're loaded. They got one of the best secondaries. Kamar Wilkinson just transferred over from Stevenson High School out in Georgia. He's a 2021 Tennessee commit, and he's really led the charge on the recruiting trail for the Tennessee Volunteers. And I expect big things for IMG. They got the toughest schedule, I believe, in high school football this year. Circle August 28th on your schedule. That's when they open up against number 14 Miami Northwestern. And I've already seen kids chirping on Twitter. So that's going to be a fun one for sure.
There was a lot of #1 there. Of course, you mentioned the toughest schedule in the country. But as you said, just the best players, the best programs. Steve, do you agree that IMG Academy is the #1 team going into the season?
I mean, it's hard to argue against their talent. That's for sure. And, you know, we get some heat that sometimes should they be considered in our rankings, because they do get a lot of transfers coming in and kids from all over the country playing for their school. But, you know, they are a high school football team that travels around the country and plays other high school football teams. So they should be considered in our rankings. And I believe they, you know, top to bottom, they do have the most talent. I think one thing we do have to watch with IMG Academy is they do rely heavy on their schedule to travel around the country to play other teams, and you know that will be a question mark all season long. And heading into the year, will teams be able to travel outside their states and do all that other stuff? So that's one of the things, you know, kind of I open the segment with, is we're going to keep an eye on all that stuff and adjust as we need. And I'm sure IMG will pick up other, you know, local games if needed. But that, I think, Zach, that's a big question mark we've always kind of talked about is, you know, what kind of schedule will IMG be able to have in 2020?
Well, there are a lot of question marks for everybody heading into the 2020 season, but we have the schools now 1 through 5 according to MaxPreps. Steve Montaya, Zach Poff, thank you so much for joining us here. Taking a look once again at 1 through 5. #1, IMG Academy. #2, Mater Dei, St. John Bosco, St. Francis Academy, and North Shore. A little argument there between the top 3, but there you have them according to MaxPreps. The top 5 teams in the country heading into the 2020 season. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.